Women's status in the Arab world before and after Islam. In most tribes of pre-Islamic Arabia, it has been shown, women were deprived of their basic rights, such as the right to choose a husband, to be well treated and the right to inheritance. Before Islam, women and even young girls were insulted in all possible ways, which was all against human rights. By burying innocent young girls were buried alive, they did not do anything except for being born as female. Often the grave would be ready by the side of the bed on which the daughter was born. This shows how females were so insulted to the extent that they were sentenced to death based on their gender. Since one of the reasons was because fathers wanted to avoid shame and disgrace, so the murder of female children was the easier solution. Moreover, according to Islamic sources, no limitations were set on men's rights to marry or to obtain a divorce in pre-Islamic tradition. Also, the institution of marriage, characterized by unquestioned male superiority in the pre-Islamic law of status, it also took a materialistic approach. For example, the dowry, previously regarded as a bride price paid to the father, male violence and female deprivation of inheritance. Women were legally required by law to be submissive and obedient to their husbands, and if not so, then their husbands were entitled to beat them and to suspend all maintenance payments. And by saying obedience, means in this case, they never should leave the house without the husband's blessings. A husband could get the assistance of the police to forcibly return his wife to the marital home if she were absent without his leave. Women themselves were considered property to be inherited by men, as she could not inherit because she herself was part of her husband's estate to be inherited. In addition, inheritance was the prerogative of men only. Women had no say or role in the matter. When a man passed away, his eldest son inherited his father's widow. He could then, if she was not his real mother, either marry her or ask his brother or his nephew, if he so wishes, to marry her in his place. As if she is not a human who should be able to choose her own husband. After Islam, the advent of Islam shifted the focus from the tribe to the individual, balanced by the concept of community and family, and instituted a system in which everyone was equal, regardless of his or her gender, race, age or wealth. Under Islam, it was the moral and religious principles, not tribal affiliations, that defined women's rights. Islam also acknowledged women as free human beings with full rights of their own. Female rights. Islam has empowered women with the most progressive rights since the 7th century. Islam also particularly transformed the men mindset regarding the treatment of women. Islam also honored women in society by elevating them and protecting them with unprecedented rights. Islam gave women the right to education, to work, to own and sell property, to seek protection by the law, to vote, and to participate in civil and political engagement. Finally, treating women like humans who deserves to have a fair life just like any human being on earth. After Islam, women gained the right to accept or reject marriage proposals, and their approval is required to complete the marriage contract, which is an offer by the man, an acceptance by the woman, and the performance of such conditions as the payment of dowry. Proudly, women now cannot be forced to marry someone against their will, and if this occurs for cultural reasons, it is in direct opposition of Islam. By the same principle, women also have the right to seek divorce if they are dissatisfied with their marriage. Also, Islamic law restricted polygamy for men to 4 wives at one time, which is discussed in the Quran as a response to a specific social situation, since polygamy should be viewed as a component of justice in the treatment of widows, but is mainly conditioned upon the need to offer fair care to orphans, according to the literal reading of the verse. However, polygamy is only permissible if all wives are treated justly. On the other hand, dowry became a nuptial gift retained by the wife as part of her personal property rather than to her father. Since, under Islamic law, marriage is no longer viewed as a status but rather as a contract. Islam further confirms that both men and women are equal in the sight of God. In the Quran, God declares, "Indeed, the most noble of you in the sight of Allah is the most righteous of you." At another place in the Quran, God clearly states that all humans are equal. To whoever, male or female, does good deeds and has faith, we shall give a good life and reward them according to the best of their actions. Therefore, Islam abolished the practice of killing female children and raised the stature of women in society. Finally, the right to inheritance. Islam gave women the right to own property and inherit from relatives. Whether a woman is a wife, mother, sister, or daughter, she receives a certain share of her deceased relative's property. This share depends on her degree of relationship to the deceased and the number of heirs, and the difference between the man and the woman in their respective shares in inheritance established by Allah's statement. Allah commands you as regards your children's inheritance, to the male, a portion equal to that of 2 females. It is clearly due to the difference in the duties and costs that each has to cope with by virtue of the Islamic teachings.